Welcome, guys. Welcome to the latest edition of Coffee Talk, which is the Gay Games Hong Kong podcast. And for this episode, I'm incredibly thrilled to have Joanie Evans, our co-president for the FGG, the Federation of Gay Games, join us all the way from UK. And we've also got Rob Wintemute. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
That's
Um,
right.
Rob, you are a veteran of the gay games. And in fact, your very first gay games was the very first one in 1982 in San Francisco. And I know that you've got some memorabilia that you want to share with us today as well. So incredibly excited to have you both here with us. I want to start up with Robert, actually, because I know that you are also registered to join this coming event in November as well. What kept you coming back again and again to the gay games, and why did you get involved in the first place? Why did you go to the first one?
In August of 1982, I had just taken the New York bar exam, and I was on holiday before starting my new job in New York in September. And my last stop was San Francisco. And during my stay, this event, I discovered an event called the Gay Games. I had not heard any advance publicity. So I went to a few of the sports, I think basketball, volleyball, swimming, I remember. And I went to the closing ceremony. And it was so inspiring. I'll never forget the athletes marching in to the theme music from the film Chariots of Fire. Tears were streaming down my cheeks. I'd always loved the Olympic Games, and the idea that there could be Olympic Games for lesbian and gay people was just amazing. And so I was just a spectator that time, but 4 years later, I went to the second games and participated in track and field. And that was very emotional as well, because about 8 months before, I was diagnosed HIV positive. So the games and running became about survival. And here's my, you got the t-shirt here from San Francisco 86. And I've got some photos. This is Joy, who carried the Calgary sign. I decided to represent my home city in Canada. She led me into the stadium here. I was a team of one at the time from Calgary. And yeah, there's me again in KSAR Stadium. So, so I was basically running for my life at the time, just trying to keep healthy. And I did see Tom Waddell from a distance at San Francisco State University track. He was participating in track. Sadly, he died in 1987, the following year, from complications from AIDS. So, and I'm so lucky to be here talking to you today. In any case, I kept, there was no treatment at the time. I kept going. There's another t-shirt, Vancouver, 1990. You can see it. And
Wow.
oh, by the way, I have the original Calgary shirt that I had made. And
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
here we
That's
have
very nice.
New York and
accreditation.
Amsterdam, Sydney there. So those are some of the first ones. But
Oh,
actually,
wow.
in terms of the timing and my health, I developed HIV-related pneumonia in May 1998, which was very lucky because they had developed the 3-drug treatment. It was announced to the world in 1996. And so I started on it on the 1st of July, 1998. So I've just celebrated 25 years of treatment and excellent health. And I went to the
Wow,
Amsterdam Gay.
congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. I went to the Amsterdam Gay Games having had this 3 week stay in hospital. And I did a symbolic run because my heat had been cancelled and I was leaving Amsterdam, but I did it anyways and made a little speech. And I think I said something like, HIV can't be beaten. See you in Sydney. And fortunately, I did make it to Sydney. And now I'm very much looking forward to maintaining my personal tradition by coming to Hong Kong.
That's terrific. Thank you so much. And I have so much curiosity about that period in history when everybody was living through the AIDS crisis. So I want to come back to that later. But thanks for sharing how you got started. Joanie, I want to ask you, what's your story? How did you first came to know the gay games, and how did you eventually become the co-president?
Um, well, it all started because there was a filmmaker in the UK that wanted to do a film about homophobia in sport, and I was chosen as the grassroots person to be filmed. So they filmed me coaching my team, and it was on like national television. And the one thing about the piece that this filmmaker did included a clip from Vancouver Gay Games, and it did have, because the two other people on the film actually, well, one person went to the game. So in terms of that, that's when I first heard about the Gay Games. And then it was like I said to my team, the next one's New York. We've got to go. We have to go to New York. So, my team, having been a team that's just been are out within our own community and, making a statement there, thought we're going to go to New York. We're going to be the only ones there from the UK because nobody else knows about it. And then when we got there, there was other teams from the UK. There were swimmers. There was quite a good contingent of people from the UK, which was great. But the atmosphere, it's just walking into Kezar Stadium was just the just amazing. I don't think it wasn't Kezar. I can't remember.
Yankee Stadium was one of them.
Yeah,
The
Yankee
closing was
Stadium.
Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, but it was just amazing. And then four of us on my team, we were in the choir as well, because in those days there was a bit more emphasis on the choir. So if you wanted to be in the choir, they'd send you the music, and then you'd have a few rehearsals in the host city, and then you'd perform at the opening ceremony. So that was like, it was just being totally immersed in the whole thing. And then since then, it's like, it's then going to everyone. And I've maintained that myself. So I've been not just with my team that I coached and played for, but I've also entered as a independent player. I played for a team from Dallas in Chicago, and I
Hmm.
played in Sydney was my best games, because I got a gold medal for football, soccer. The team that I had were made up of women from um, London, New Zealand, and Italy. And it was just the best time. We won every game. And
Wow.
I've never played football like that. Do you know what I mean? Playing with a team that we all knew what we were doing and playing with such love and freedom, and stuff. And then coming away with the gold medal was just, sort of ecstatic. So, and then when I think I just kept being involved. And then there was a period of time when I wasn't involved in anything, sports or anything, because of stuff that was happening in my life. And then when I went to Chicago, there was a guy called Ivan Bussons who was part of Out for Sport. And I met him, and he was like the person that said, "Look, we want you. We know your energy. Come on, you want to get more involved in what's happening in the community." So I started to um, become more involved within the FGG. And then it was when London had went to bid for the 2018 games, and we were shortlisted with Paris and Limerick. I was part of the bid team then. And then at the time when London didn't get the games, I was approached to um, see if I'd want to apply to be the co-president, which I was really shocked about because I'm thinking, there's little old me in my little flat in London, and I pop up at the gay games every 4 years, and I might join a committee every now and again. But it's amazing how much people take notice of you. And if you're doing well and you're doing good, people remember. They remember the conversations that they have with you. Because I was the first female vice president of diversity, which is now the EDI role. So I've dipped in and out, but it's usually because it's also because of resources as well. You know why it
Hmm.
can't be a continuous thing, but. Yeah, but being co-president, the first 3 months I didn't speak or say anything because I was just like a deer in headlights. I'm thinking, what am I doing here? But what I've instilled for it now is the belief that I have, what I feel is needed for our community, is what I want for what the Gay Games is doing. So all of the things that I've moaned about or complained about that's not been happening, it's now I feel I have the
And now you
belief
have
that
to do it.
yeah, yeah. And one of the things is to try, to make sure that the Gay Games does spread itself around the world, that we don't stay just in comfortable places, because we've got people within our community that are in places that they don't get to have the experience of the games. They don't get to see what everybody else gets. And if they can't go to it, then it's really for us to go to them and in some ways try and change the hearts and minds of the community wherever they live. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I enjoy what I do, and I know I can't do it forever, but I'm in the search for the next female co-president because there needs to be someone that has the same passion, to keep things going.
Yeah, well, as part of the organizing committee, I've been on numerous meetings with you, and we always enjoy working with you and Sean and the rest of the group. It's a monumental effort, obviously, and a huge group effort, but we do appreciate your leadership and Sean's leadership as well. And I see you've got your FGG shirt on as well. Which year is that from? Is that from a
Oh,
particular year?
our board shirt. I think this was probably started. This design started from Chicago because that's
Ah,
where the games changed the world um, logo from. So yeah, I've got various tops of different degrees. I wasn't sure what to wear today, so this was the first thing
oh,
that
I
came
love that
into.
you both got connections to Chicago.
you, you, so you know the why there are three circles in gay game symbol. That's the original symbol from 1982 when it was going to be called the Gay Olympic Games. And at the last minute, the US Olympic Committee went to court and got an injunction preventing the organizers from using the word Olympic. And so they had to rush around taking tape and covering up Olympic, etc. But
Mm,
the thirds, and then the case ended up in the U.S. Supreme Court, and the Gay Games organizers, San Francisco Arts and Athletics, lost. It was considered that yes, just too shocking to put gay and Olympics together. Uh, but that survives. The Olympic part survives in the middle circle there in the three symbols.
I was just going to say, I thought you were going to say they went around taping up three of the circles, or two of the circles, leaving three circles.
It's actually the word had to disappear wherever
Yeah,
it was on the list or anything like that. But the circle was subtle enough that it could survive.
yeah. This also brings up an interesting point, Rob, which is, and this has been brought up before, the name, the gay games. Obviously, back in 1982, gay as a word basically included the entire spectrum or implied the entire spectrum of gender identity, which nowadays it really doesn't. And so it's a little bit of a holdover from those days. But do you feel that people still easily misunderstand that, or is this something that's already pretty well understood?
Mm, I think that the name is maintained for convenience because it's one syllable. And we know that once you start adding letters, you get quite a mouthful. So
Yeah, it's a very different world today. Also, I think we definitely have very different conversations about gender, I think, versus 1982. And of course, as you had alluded to earlier, 1982 or the 80s were also the time of the AIDS crisis. And I obviously, as somebody who didn't live through that, it's hard for us to imagine what that must have felt like. But did you feel that having a community event like the Gay Games, did that help to at least, I don't know, at least unite people or make them feel less alone as they're dealing with this crisis?
I think it did, definitely. It was such a big visible event. You can compare it with a pride parade. A pride parade is even bigger in number in terms of number of people in it, but it's usually just one day. Whereas this was a week and it involved events all over the city. I can tell you how it personally inspired me. I attended the closing ceremony in 1982, and I remember the author Rita Mae Brown made a speech, and she talked about athletes staying in the closet to make money. And I think it was a very pointed reference to her former partner, Martina Navratilova, who was in the closet at the time. But it had a big effect on me because I flew back to New York and went to the law firm, Wall Street area law firm, Milbank, that I joined and had my first day at work, went home and could not sleep that night. I felt, oh my God, I've sold my soul to corporate law. And I was definitely in the closet at the firm. But maybe that Rita Mae Brown's words were just rolling around in the back of my head. But it took, how long? Really just, I guess, 2.5 years. Is that right? And then I came out to my boss at work and I asked if I could do pro bono work, free legal work for HIV and Gay Men's Health Crisis and Lambda Legal Defense, the two organizations.
Mm-hmm.
That was 1985. So I was the first openly gay or lesbian lawyer at the firm at a time when there was no legal protection against discrimination in New York City, so they could have fired me if they'd wanted to. So yeah, and basically, I came out, and then a few months later, I had my HIV diagnosis, and then I had to think, okay, what if I only have a few years to live? Do I want to spend the rest of it at this law firm? And I decided no, and I moved to the United Kingdom. I went to the University of Oxford and started a PhD in 1987, which was eventually published as a book, Sexual Orientation and Human Rights, by Oxford University Press. 1991, I started teaching law at King's College London, and I've been here ever since. So in a way, I
Wow.
can thank the Gay Games for my very interesting career as a human rights lawyer.
Were you ever involved in ACT UP as well at that time?
No, I wasn't, but I benefited greatly. I might not be alive, actually, if it weren't for ACT UP. I mean, civil disobedience is controversial, blocking streets, lying down on subway or underground tracks. But they got attention and they got money going into research for drugs. And
Mm.
those drugs came along just when I needed them. So yeah, I
Mm.
have to
Mm.
say thank you to ACT UP.
And I'm glad we have you still with us today.
Hmm.
Now, interestingly, those were the days when people were protesting against the lack of investment in AIDS research, or the lack of any attention being paid by the then U.S. government, the Reagan government. Now, what's interesting in recent years, of course, or recent, is this swing back to a lot of anti-LGBTQ sentiment, especially in the States. What do you make of that? Do you see history repeating itself, or why are we regressing?
Mm,
Is that a very
yeah,
big question?
it's a big question. I tend to look on the bright side. I mean, I think yeah, there are controversies over particular issues, but you have to look back to our starting point. So 1982, actually, in half of the states in the U.S., sexual activity between men and between women was illegal. And in 1986, just before the second Gay Games, the U.S. Supreme Court said that was okay in the Bowers versus Hardwick decision. So 1982, I have to check the month, but you get the first state out of 50 to prohibit discrimination in employment based on sexual orientation. So forget about same-sex marriage. There was almost nothing. Actually, it's actually somewhat similar to Hong Kong, although Hong Kong is better because of the court decisions on rights of same-sex couples and no criminal
Mm,
law for a long time in
yeah.
Hong Kong. But yeah, so is there a risk we're going to go back to that starting point? I don't think so at all. The U.S. Supreme Court's decision on same-sex marriage from 2015, I think even despite their overturning Roe versus Wade on a woman's right to choose an abortion, I think they'll leave same-sex marriage alone. They'll find a way to treat it differently. If, in particular, if they start overturning all the related decisions, they'll have to overturn the one on different race marriage from 1967. It used to be illegal
Mm,
in the majority of states for a black person to marry a white person. So I don't think they're going to go that far. So yeah, so there are
mm.
some current controversies, but this does happen in
But you're
politics. I
hopeful.
mean, I'm
Yeah,
hopeful. Yeah. But history does repeat
absolutely.
itself. Actually,
Yeah.
I would be more, I wouldn't be concerned about the United States. I would be concerned about countries, for example, in Africa, Russia, etc. Because I
Middle
arrived
East.
in the UK. Yeah, I arrived in the UK in 1987, just in time for what became known as Section 28. So a law prohibiting local governments, it was passed in 1988, from promoting homosexuality. And in particular, it said that government funded schools could not promote the teaching of the acceptability of homosexuality as a pretended family relationship. And so we're seeing history repeat itself. Fortunately, that law
Mm,
it was on the statute book for 15 years, repealed in 2003. So actually,
yeah.
and 25 years after it was passed, we got same-sex marriage. So we went from pretended families to married couples in 25 years. So,
Mm,
but
mm,
you have a similar law in Russia that's actually much worse than the one we had in the UK because it applies to everyone, not local governments. So you could get arrested for carrying a rainbow flag in the street. And we have African countries that want to have a backlash, and they look at their laws and say, oh,
mm,
wait a minute, we already have a criminal law. So they have to think, well, how can we make it worse? Well, let's throw in a death penalty here and there in certain situations. So that's what you're seeing in Uganda, and there's talk of it in
yeah.
Kenya now, etc. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I think we need to put the controversies in the U.S. In perspective.
In perspective. Yeah. And I think also speaking for Hong Kong, it's definitely safe to be carrying around a rainbow flag, and a lot of us actually do that. There's no
Yeah, I mean that's a good.
there's no
Yeah, I'd
repercussions.
yeah, I'd
Yeah.
say that's a good test. If a country can hold a region hold the gay games, it's doing very well because you
Mm,
can't have a pride parade in Moscow or Istanbul or almost the entire, well, Muslim world. It used to be Istanbul and Ankara and most of Africa outside South Africa. So yeah, so
mm,
Hong Kong is relatively speaking
yeah.
doing very well.
Yeah. I wanna go back to sports for a moment, and Joni, obviously you being or coming from football, I'm sure you're aware of the recent controversies about transgender athletes, um, and of course for the gay games in Hong Kong, we actually have a dedicated DEI team that ensures that we are very welcoming and adhering to full support for the different challenges related to gender in sports today. Do you think we can make a difference? Events like the Gay Games, can we help to kind of bridge that divide of people really understanding gender politics in sports, or do you think that that's a fight that's going to take a very long time, or an education process that's going to take a very long time?
Um, the thing about it is that within our communities, like as soon as we feel that we've got it right and we're in a good
Yeah.
place, or we've finally got to that point in the world, somebody puts a spanner in it and creates an issue that we have never had a problem with. Like, and for people who are trans coming to the gay games, it's never been an issue. We've found a way to fit them in, just like we find a way to fit everybody in, even through our scholarship programs to try and get people from other areas who wouldn't necessarily have the chance to travel. And they will come from countries that the death penalty is they could have the death penalty. But we try and, but the thing is that when you put things on a worldwide platform, it's very difficult for people to then turn around and say this is not happening, or it doesn't go on anywhere else. So in terms of that, I feel that the gay games has changed certain things in the world. Like with the AIDS crisis, I think we had to get, I think, I can't remember, it might have been for New York or one of the American cities, for them to allow people from abroad who may be HIV, that they wouldn't have to go through rigorous tests to be at the games. So in terms of that, that was one thing that we was able to do. The other thing is that when hosts are involved in the gay games, because the government then we have to have government permission
Mm,
to be there, or government support, I should say. And in that sense, it's like the government itself has to stand by what we're doing. So in terms of that, it does change things, because when London was bidding alongside Limerick, there was still talks in Ireland about the same-sex marriage, and there was such excitement about the bid for the gay games. Ireland's a small island, so the word got out. But I know that some countries it's about doing that fine line and dotting the i's and crossing the t's when they know that they're going to be under scrutiny, or they know that the community is going to come and visit them. So there has been certain things that have changed, and we're one of the things for the federation is that we want to be the lead organization that people come to when there's difficulties within our community, and we need to have those policies and procedures in place. So we've got our own gender policy, we've got issues around trans policy as well. And in terms of that, we want to be able to speak up or make sure if there's any injustices that we have a word, not have a word, but we have our input in making sure that we
have a point of view.
support. Yeah. So in terms of that, it's really that we don't necessarily go out and say, right, this is what we're going to do. We put on our event and hope that the event speaks for itself. So for me, it's like I know that whether or not we get thousands and thousands of people coming to any of the gay games, it's really the people that do come who've never had the opportunity. It's those first timers that I love speaking to, because the amazement of them knowing that there's something for them that is the same as everybody else makes a difference. And then it's still that thing, you do get the joy of those people that come back every year, because they cement what the gay games is about. Because it's not just going once and thinking, oh yeah, I had a really nice time. It's like, once you've gone once, you don't want to miss another one.
Yeah, yeah,
So, probably like Rob, you want to stay within the right lines of the games. So, I'm really looking forward to being in Hong Kong, and being to be able to be around and be visible, um, to for whoever is going to be there, because it's really important that we show the world that things are okay here and there, and it's no one's going to get hurt. But it is
yeah,
that thing about, you have to we have to, whenever there's an issue within some of the major sports, like within rugby and swimming, where they're banning trans women, and in terms of that, it's like we have to look at that, and look at what um, the issues around the EDI would affect us as an organisation, because we know
mm,
that someone's chosen gender isn't necessarily should exclude them from anything. So it's
yeah.
yes, it's looking past all the corporate and the money stuff, and then just looking at what somebody wants to do from their heart.
Yeah. You mentioned something that I think is very important, which is accessibility. The fact that for a lot of people coming to Hong Kong, this will be the first time in their lives they're attending a gay games event. And this being the first gay games in Asia means that it's accessible to a lot of people from all around Asia. That's just a short flight away from Hong Kong. We're also very excited that we're bringing in a transgender football league from Cambodia. It's called the Lotus Sports Club, and this is a group of young people, young transgendered athletes who are coming to Hong Kong for the first time in their lives and participating. And I think that it's those stories that make us really um, gives us a sense of mission for why we're doing this, and I think it's very important. And it's also interesting whenever you have an event of this scale, you're going to get opposition, right? So in Hong Kong, we've already had some religious groups that are coming out and saying that they're against this LGBTQ lifestyle thing being held in Hong Kong. How did you deal with that in past gay games, whether it's religious groups or just homophobes or bigots? How did
We
people
just
manage
smile
their
and wave.
opposition?
Well, we just smiled and waved, because I think the first time that I ever saw the full extent of, you know, religious groups being anti the gay games was in New York. Because they lined the whole, when we were going in for the opening ceremony, when we were where we were walking in, they were lining up outside with banners and stuff. And
Yeah,
everybody, they didn't, nobody shouted back at them, or was had shown any animosity. All the gays would be like waving, smiling,
yeah,
some would be kissing in front of them. But it's, with all the religious groups. And then when we had the big parade at the end of Pride, because it was New York Pride, you had the same thing. So wherever you go, for whatever reason, is that there would always be some group that doesn't like you. And the thing is that I don't go to a gay games to be affected by these people. I go to a gay game because I want to mix with my community and have fun, and be in that bubble, because that to me is like excess noise that will go on regardless of what you do, because some people don't have anything better to do in their lives. And it's always, I grew up in a very strong religious family, and even my church I grew up in is very anti-gay. And but the thing is that there's certain things that I'm noticing that's changing within them. Not that I go to church anymore, but it's that thing is like I'm not living my life for them. I'm living my life for my community where I feel welcome and nobody's trying to put me down or that sort of thing. But it will always get people that are going to do that. And my thing is that we have to be present to show people what it is. It's like we have to look them in the eye and said, right, we're here now. What do you think? Because you'll be guaranteed that a lot of people will change how they feel right now about the whole of the LGBT community coming to Hong Kong. They'll have a different idea about it because you will get every spectrum of our community being there. So people can't say, oh, well, it's just if you're this, then it's going to be this. No, you will
Yes.
have them there, you'll see them, you'll get first-hand experience, and then you can judge us. It's that thing of this don't know situation that's the what the games brings to any city is just transforms the city completely. You would probably the day before or the day before nobody would think about it, and as soon as it hits, it's like it's been there forever. So it's really just take out the noise and just keep
Yeah.
focused on the people that are coming and their first time experiences. And we've all had first time experiences of the game. So in terms of that, that's what you have to remember, that why can't I give that and make sure somebody else has that experience.
I think that's really wise what you said just now about tune out the noise and focus on the people that you're doing this for and stay focused on the mission, because obviously the Hong Kong organizing committee, we have to deal with a lot of noise. We mentioned religious groups, anti-LGBTQ and so on. And of course, there's also the subject of the political implications of coming to a city like Hong Kong, right? The geopolitics of it. And this is something we've had to kind of constantly explain ourselves, that coming to Hong Kong for the gay games, you're coming to a sports, arts and culture event. You're not coming to make a statement against any geopolitics. Um, what's your advice for people that this is still kind of swirling around in their heads? This topic of Hong Kong as a destination, or maybe Rob, since you're a veteran of the games and you've been to so many of them, why did you choose to come to Hong Kong? What were your considerations? What was your thought process as you were making your plans?
Well, I definitely didn't want to miss the first games in Asia, so that made it very simple for me. And then I started to hear from some people, well, no, you shouldn't go to Hong Kong because there are controversies about basic freedoms in Hong Kong, etc. Well, to me, that's blaming the victim. You don't punish the victim because of the actions of another government. So I think that's all the more reason to go to Hong Kong, and this and the unusual circumstances with following the pandemic. Athletes can choose between Hong Kong and Guadalajara, and they'll have all kinds of reasons for choosing one or the other, possibly economic, cost of flights, whatever. But if both destinations are available to an individual, I would say please go to Hong Kong, because Mexico has same-sex marriage across the country, and Hong Kong doesn't. Hong Kong doesn't have an anti-discrimination law yet. I've spoken twice at the British consulate in Hong Kong in 2015 and 2016 about legal issues in Hong Kong. And what's interesting is the anti-discrimination laws in Hong Kong are limited, so they don't cover sexual orientation and they don't cover religion. So actually, the
Yeah.
Christians protesting against the gay games are not protected at all. So really, Hong Kong needs a comprehensive law to protect everyone. So But in terms of law and politics, the region that needs a boost and the support of people from abroad is definitely Hong Kong. And maybe I could just add something here about visibility. So that's so I first got when I moved to New York in 1982. I joined Frontrunners New York, and the gay games are really the top of the pyramid, you could say, of lesbian and gay sport around the world. And sport is an alternative to nightlife. So governments are quite happy to have lesbian and gay people going out at night, slipping discreetly into bars and dance clubs, etc. But they're not so keen on having them out in broad daylight. And so that's where I think the sport makes a difference. You have people doing something healthy. There are stereotypes about our community as unhealthy, obsessed with sex and drugs, and so it's really it really does help to educate people when they come across sports groups. And when they do that at the gay games, it's the effect is amplified. So just a concrete example is that the athletes go to and from their accommodation to the venues. And how do they do that? Usually on public transport. So in the Hong Kong, I can never remember, is it MRT or MTR?
MTR.
MTR subway underground. There'll be lots of athletes wearing their ID badges. Some of them will be wearing their medals, very happy, etc. And they'll have conversations with people and explain to them what's going on. So that's really one of the huge benefits of the games for the host city.
Yeah.
Interesting you should say that,
right.
because Hong Kong's public transportation system is actually rated #1 in the world. So it's basically got a very sophisticated subway, public bus system, and so on. And also, interestingly, the MTR are very supportive. They've donated advertising space to the gay games. It's interesting that basically the largest railway here that will be responsible for transporting a lot of our participants, they are a supporter as well.
Good to hear.
Sorry, Joanie, I interrupted you.
Sorry. No, because I'm picking up on what Rob said about, talking to people when you're traveling between where you're staying and your sport and maybe an event, because that's like the most important thing, because you get on a one-to-one with the people that live there who are not part of your community or are interested in to know why you're there. And it's really strange because when you speak to people, they're not as shocked as you think they are, because in terms of that, it's like, well, there's all these people around and they're supposed to be this, but I'm now seeing them as that. So that's been a really great thing, because people also thank us for coming and wishing us well in their country and stuff. And I think that, when Hong Kong was picked as the host, a lot of things weren't happening there that would have, if it was happening at the time, then maybe they wouldn't have got the bid. But it was for the reasons we're going to Hong Kong, for the reasons why we chose to go there. External things have happened, but as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't affect our games, because our games is an event that's geared to a particular set of people who are not those that would create a situation, with others. We're not going there to sort of like have a mass protest. We're going there to have a good time and enjoy ourselves. And I think that the one thing that people need to do is, whenever you travel anywhere in the world, is to respect the country that you're going to. If you don't have respect for that country, don't go. I'd be really upset if anybody came to the gay games just to create a problem, which they never have, and I don't envisage that they will, because all the people, the naysayers, I'm hoping that they will stay away, because that's, there is another place that they can go, another event that they can attend. And for us as the gay games, it's like we're doing things that we never thought we'd have to do. We never thought we'd have to deal with a pandemic or an issue with a host city, or have to have a co-hosted event. So for me, I think there's a lot of firsts that are going to happen. That if it does, well, it will happen. And once it's all over, then people will come back and they won't be able to say the same things that they said before. It'd be like, oh yeah, look at what they've done. Look at what this has done. And I think the thing is that the legacy that is left behind after a games, that in itself, that will remain within Hong Kong forever. Like for Cleveland, we've had so many things happened after Cleveland, and that wasn't well attended, especially by a lot of Americans. But in Cleveland, we've got a statue. There's lots of things that they've put within the city that will still remember the game. So, the games itself as an event will remain the one thing that will make the biggest change for the community, even if it does make one person feel like they know they belong in the world, then our job is done.
Yeah, I think that's very true, and I really what you said really resonates with me, Joni. I think it is a once in a lifetime experience for a lot of people. For many people coming from Asia, it will be the first time in their lives that they're attending the Gay Games, and for Hong Kong as a city, this is going to be a momentous occasion that's going to leave a huge legacy. And we are literally watching history being made here, and this is something that it only happens once, and I'm very glad that I'm here for it, and I definitely wouldn't want to miss it. I want to direct the last question to Rob. I thank you for coming to Hong Kong, and we're very excited to have you here. Are you going to participate in just one sport, or are you going to compete in a few events? Have you already made up your mind yet?
Oh yeah. Well, I I took up swimming actually in Vancouver, but I didn't do very well. I wasn't part of a swim club, and so then I next appearance was Sydney 50-meter freestyle. But basically, yeah, I always do two sports. In Paris, 5 weeks before, I broke my toe, so I couldn't do track and field, the 1500 meters. But I did my swimming. So this time I registered for track and field and swimming. Swimming is going ahead. The track and field, unfortunately, has been cancelled, but I've switched to the 5 kilometer road race. So, but looking forward to all of
Oh
that.
wow,
Yeah.
that's terrific. So with that, I want to say thank you so much to both of you for your time today. This has been very inspiring, and I truly enjoy speaking with you and hearing about the history of the games and your own personal connection to it. So yeah, I look forward to seeing both of you in Hong Kong in November. I think it's going to
Yeah,
be incredible. So thank you very much.
you're very welcome. And keep up the good work, David. You're doing really, really fab over there. Do you know what I mean? So it's going to
Thank
be
you so much. Thanks, Joni.
Thank you
Thanks,
for
Rob.
making thank you for
Thanks,
making
Rob.
the
I'll
games
see you
happen.
soon.
Yes.